Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm so happy that you're here joining us today. Today is a special show because we're going to be talking about in the midst of adversity, how do we thrive? Well, no one's going to escape adversity in this lifetime. I think we all go through it, but we do thrive. We can thrive. And today's guests are really special to me because they both have gone through similar as myself, experiencing breast cancer, and they are thriving. And this is why I'm doing this show, is to help you listen to their story and see how they did it, and hopefully send a message out to everyone who's being touched, anyone who's being touched by cancer, to know that they can come out on the other side of it, where light is shining and the rainbow's out, and we can truly have a wonderful life, even though we went through this adversity. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Terry and my dear friend who made it at the last moment. I am so grateful, Tanya Powell. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate you coming on, sharing your stories, and making time to come on the show. So, of course, we all know adversity comes in so many different forms in our life. It's just not, this is just one form of it, but we all go through adversity. And just sharing stories, inspirational stories, and how we came through it. My goal is to really help people see that they can also go, pass from the dark to get to the light. So, Terry, would you like to share your story with us first? Tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Certainly. I'm Terry Stirk. I am a 2-time survivor of triple-negative breast cancer. I was initially diagnosed when I was 40 years old and had 2 little kids. So that was obviously a challenging time, but I got through it and went on with my life. It wasn't until my second occurrence, which was 10 years later, and then my kids were teenagers. I had one in high school and one in college. But at that point, I realized I hadn't fully healed from the first time. I guess I didn't realize the emotional impact it had on me. I had just shoved it in the back of my mind and trucked forward. So it was after that second time through the same kind of cancer that I realized it's time to find a different way to live and to thrive. And so that's when I found my passion, and that's helping other breast cancer women, so that are battling their own battles.
Of course.
So that's my story.
It definitely changes our life, going forward. I mean, we're not the same person anymore. Tanya, I'm sure you can relate to that, right?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on, Giovanna. I am so excited to be here. This is my energy, right?
Yeah, I love your
regardless of what we're speaking about. So my journey started in 2019, October, November of 2019. Who keeps these dates in their heads, right?
Yeah.
But what it was for me is that I had literally just spent a year, August to September, being my mom's caregiver as she was going through colon cancer. And so after her treatments and everything, took her back home because we were in the States. I live in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And it was just, a few weeks later, just before my 47th birthday, that, my doctor called and said, we're so sorry. And, Giovanna and Terry, it somehow I knew because I remember the night when I felt this excruciating pain out of nowhere that had just zinged through my breast. And I remember saying, Lord, just contain it, right? Because I was away with my mom. So I
Yeah.
wasn't even anywhere, close to my doctor or so. But I just knew, just contain it until I get home and I can see my
Yeah.
doctor. And so that began my journey. And part of the story that I share is, you know everything happens for a reason. Napoleon Hill says, with adversity there is always that seed of good. And so my
Right.
mom and I had created what we call the recipe for thriving through adversity. And so when it was my turn, I remember looking at the doctor and said, bring it, because I got something for it. So let's go. Let's deal with this thing, right?
See, and
So
this is the attitude. This is the attitude that I think really makes a difference. And I'll just share a quick story that I was told, which I'll never forget. Um, Two people go to the doctor. They both have cancer, and one speaks to one doctor and says, "What does this mean?" And the doctor says, "Well, according to research and all the books, it states that you may have 5 years to live, but nobody really knows." Goes to the other doctor, and the other doctor says to the patient, "Well, what do you think this means?" And the doctor, she goes, "Am I going to die?" And the doctor looks at her watch and says, "Not on my watch, you're not going to die." Right? So just the words that came out of the doctors to the patients makes a big difference in how that person left the room, and with the attitude of, you know what, I am going to make it. And this is why we're here, because I know when we can bring our stories out to say, if we can make it, you can make it too. This is the purpose of this show, because I know many, and we can all relate to that phone call and the fear that just, paralyzed us. We just didn't know what to even think, and what to make of it. And we don't know what the journey is ahead. Yes, let's not lie. It's not a pretty journey, but, you can with, you know, positive mindset is not just the mind, but it's in your heart. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's in the heart. What do we really want, even though we are faced with this adversity in our life? And again, this is not just for women who are going through breast cancer, but anyone who's facing adversity in their life. We have to ask ourselves, we know we don't want it. We know it doesn't feel good. So what's the other side of it? What can we say to ourselves? What strategies will help us to look at that? Yeah, we can make it. We can survive this adversity in our life. Terry?
Yes, that is something I care so much about because I realized that thriving through adversity is definitely possible, no matter what is happening. And the reason I say that is because you mentioned the heart, and that is where it is. If you can be joyful in your heart, it really doesn't matter what else is out there in front of you. And that's how I managed my own cancer the second time. Not so well the first time, but the second time, realizing that I can be joyful no matter what else is happening to me. And that's what I try to teach other women, or what I do teach other women now. Cancer impacts our bodies, of course, but it also is very emotional. It impacts our minds because our minds tell us stories that may or may not be true. And then our heart is where we can hold onto our spirit, and whether, whatever that is for you. For me, it's God. But that's where I find my joy. And that's where I find my belief system. So a lot in my last book, I talked a lot about belief busting, is what I called it, because sometimes, like I said, we are telling ourselves stories that aren't true.
Yeah.
But a number one way to thrive during adversity is to get real and understand what's really happening and throw away what might happen, because you don't know what the future holds. We only know what we have now. What is so important now? And when I started functioning that way, I was a much happier person.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tanya, I'm sure, I mean, Tanya and I both are in within the Napoleon Hill Institute, and this is what we study. We study how to really take control of the mind, because yes, Terry, you're right. The mind will tell, give us the feelings, and then we react on those feelings. And here's the trick: because we react, we're not in control. We're not in control, right? So Tanya, let's talk about that a little bit, of when we are in control, how we can shift things.
Yes, I love what Terry said. For me, that moment of, wait a minute, came as I was laying in my hospital bed after mastectomy, and I'm thinking, okay, if this is it, is this it? Have I really showed up for life and in life and played powerfully? And it was in that moment that it hit me. What is my purpose? And so I remember, even before I left the hospital, I was like starting to journal. Okay, why was I really placed on this earth? Who am I supposed to serve? How am I to show up? Um, and so it was that moment that I said, And I remembered a poem by Dr. Miles Monroe. And, this is not verbatim, but, it basically said that the richest place on earth are not the oil fields of Iran or Iraq, nor the diamond caves of South Africa, but that the richest place on earth is a cemetery, because there lay, gifts never open, books never written, businesses never started, masterpieces never painted. And in that moment, I was like, I'm going to rob the grave of my gifts and talents and show up in the world. And so that really began my journey into what comes next, as Terry is saying, in that moment, in the now. And so one of the biggest strategies for me that I found was, as simple as it's going to sound, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, gratitude.
That's right.
Gratitude was just so powerful for me, because we know this. And, it goes to what you're saying, Giovanna, about controlling the mind, the thoughts that give us the feelings. Our feelings dictate the actions that we take. And so when I started to get really grateful for every little thing, you know
Yeah,
that feeling in me changes. It's hard for you to be in a state of gratitude and negativity and fear at the same
absolutely.
time, and I challenge my clients to try it. So even something, as unfortunate as this will sound, even the fact that, when I was feeling any kind of pain, I would always say, you know what, I'm not grateful for the pain, but I'm grateful that I'm feeling it, because feeling it means I'm still alive and I can still not go another day. And there is still someone else to serve, because gratitude just connects us to our source, to God. For me, to Terry, it's God. And where we put our focus, we get more of that. And so with gratitude, resources came, people came in my life, that helped me through, and to be able to speak about that. I remember somebody looking at me and saying, my oncologist actually. I remember one day I went to chemotherapy, and that's some long hours, right? And I'm walking with my knapsack. I had just discovered the teachings of Bob Proctor. And I'm getting into, and my favorite book I was reading at the time is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And so I'm starting to make the connection with the mind and the body and the heart. And, I put all these books in my knapsack, and I'm heading to chemotherapy. And he said, you can come and sleep. And I said, sleep? I got work to do, people's lives to touch, my
Yeah.
life to live. Why would I sleep? So that mindset really does make a difference, because now they're asking me to bring this material to other patients in the hospital,
Yeah.
So yeah.
I always say that we have to fight for what we want. And
Yes.
that is even our life. And again, not just in this situation, but we're always fighting for what what makes us feel good, what makes us whole. Because I feel like every time when you see someone who's hopeless, you want to let them know that they're really not. They're really not. All they need to do is ask for help. And a lot of people do have. We're not trained to ask for help. We're not trained to say I'm sorry, say gratitude every day. This is not something that gets drilled in our mind. And so we don't make it a habit. But, beginning these new ways of truly opening us up to source, like we said, to God, and say, help us, take us, lead us the way. And like you said, Tanya, things do show up. There is,
Right.
I mean, Terry, you do a beautiful program online. You have a Facebook group that you help many women, 2,000 women in your group. I mean, just being in that community, I'm sure you're giving hope and inspiration to many women out there, being that now we all go virtual and we all have meetings virtually. This is a big plus. Can you talk a little bit about that, Terry?
Yes, I will. I originally, when I first started getting involved in helping women going through breast cancer, I was facilitating 2 support groups in my city and at 2 different hospitals. And then I was diagnosed with my second round of breast cancer. And so that's when I stepped down. But after my second, after I had healed and gotten back to work and all of that, then the pandemic hit. And so I was busy inside Facebook groups at that point, just trying to see what I could do to help these ladies who, were just struggling with their diagnosis and their treatments and being stuck. And so that's when I saw a need, and I felt called to do this and set up my own group, which was full of positive support. In our group, we don't do a lot of questions about medical procedures. We're more talking about our brain and our heart. It's how do I move forward from this, or how do I take this news and continue to thrive? Because many women like me get diagnosed again, but if they're prepared for it, they can handle it. I'm not saying worry about a second diagnosis, but I'm saying build the tools in your life now to lead a life where you thrive. And then when adversity happens, you have the tools to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to come back. And Tanya, we can pick up where Terry left off, because I truly feel that a big component of this to help us thrive is really our mindset and the words and how we speak to ourselves. Because once you go down this path, it's almost like we must be very careful with the words that we say, even though we are, in a the emotions are running rampant. The words are powerful. Words are powerful. That's what I've learned, and I'd like to really get a little bit into that. So we'll be right back with the commercial break, and we'll continue.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. That we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
Everyone knows that is my favorite commercial. I'm going to think back. I had a burning desire to stay alive. And I know we all do when we get hit with this kind of news, right? But our mind is very powerful. Our hearts want to stay alive, but our mind kind of takes over and brings in all the information that we have been exposed to and conditioned to believe. And I know for me, it was like a death sentence. Like I had the thought that my life was coming to an end. Not realizing that those thoughts were paralyzing me, basically. Like I had no control because of the way I was thinking, because of how we learned from the environment that cancer kills. So we were very panicking, fear stricken. But now I understand that, yes, that's there, but we have a choice. We have a choice whether we go in that direction or say, no matter what anybody's saying, I'm going to beat the odds because of the will and the desire. So Tanya, let's talk about that, because I know you and I study a lot about this. And for me, this was like another wake-up call to know how powerful the mind can be.
So I love how you put that. And it's the funniest thing because I had just started really studying this material. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with the word, but I didn't even associate with the word survivor. I never used the word cancer survivor. It just felt hard. It felt like I was gonna have to really fight and push through, right? And whether it was that my body didn't feel like it was up to it, I always used cancer thriver. And persons would always look at me like, that's a little strange. And so, but because I started to learn how powerful words are, how much they create. And it was always about certain words, and I would feel a vibration in my body. So when somebody said survive, I would feel that that angst in my body. And so I started to become very, very particular about the words I was using and what I was thinking. So I remember one day, um, I was hurting. I was going through, if anybody could say they had a good journey through treatment, I'm gonna say that was me, because yes, I had tough days, yes, I had bad days, but I think my good days really outnumbered the bad. And I realized one day why that was. So one day my body hurting, was hurting, and I felt sick. And I was like, I've never felt this way. Yes, I know I'm going through the journey, but why am I feeling this way? And I remembered hearing, that's not the question to ask. The question to ask is, what are you thinking that's causing you to feel this way? And I was like, oh. So I stopped. I remember I was laying in my bed and I'm asking myself, okay, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? Turns out I was going down that rabbit hole. What if the treatments don't work? What if I die? What if it comes back? What if? And I was going down that rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
So my thoughts were starting to create that. So one of the things I speak about is wherever your mind goes, your body follows. And I experienced that. So in that moment, I was like, oh my God. And I start to change it. I'm so grateful I'm alive. Thank you, God, whatever it is. I'm going to emerge from this wiser, stronger, more purposeful. And suddenly I'm feeling like I could go run a marathon. So just in that moment, that experience really showed me how much our thoughts create. We talk about it, Giovanna, all the time. Thoughts are things.
Yes.
And so when our thoughts, manifest in our body and give us that feeling, and then we create. And when we're in that space, we don't take action. We just lay and curl up and hope. And the thing I did is that I did not go down the rabbit hole with the doctors.
Yeah. And it's funny,
Yeah.
we talk about thoughts, and after I've learned, we can accept or reject a thought. And I'm like, we can? How do we do that? Oh, just as simple as reject, a thought comes to your mind and you're like, reject and don't give it any more energy and start thinking of something else. I know it's not easy, but if you practice, it makes sense, because one thought, magnetizes to another thought. Thought is energy. You're just pulling in energy with one thought. Like if you want to bake a cake, I'm like, yeah, I'm baking a cake tonight. What do I need? I need the eggs. Like all these things come to mind. All these other thoughts come to mind. It's no different with what we're saying here, right? You take a thought and either you accept it or reject it. I used to tell my clients to put some kind of like a rubber band around their like a bracelet, to snap it. Like if they had a thought that was kind of bad, like just snap it right away. So that thought went away. Just give them something visually that they can do to reject a thought that doesn't feel good. Because truthfully, when you're entertaining thoughts that don't feel good, you're vibrating low. That is not what you really want. It's, and I'll say this because again, I believe in God as well, but the Creator doesn't want that for you either. God doesn't want that for you either. That's why it doesn't feel good, right? And so changing the mind or being in control of the thoughts is extremely important. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I do have a technique that I like to teach my clients, and it's exactly what you both are talking about, where your mind is somewhere separate from your body in reality. So once you figure that out, that I got to stop this, we have to do something to bring ourselves back to our body, connect to us. And so I call it, and maybe you've heard of it, but the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so what it teaches us is to look at all of our senses. So name 5 things that I see, name 4 things that I can touch, and you just run through each of those senses, touching and feeling and tasting and seeing, and it helps bring you back to your body and think about what's real and what's in front of me right now. It was very effective for me, and I'm hoping it's effective for other people as well. But that's another technique to get us back to the present and back to our bodies.
Yes, and I'll share something, and Tanya, we can elaborate on this, because yes, we use our 5 senses all the time, but what we've learned is that if we use higher faculties, are you ready, Tanya? If we use higher faculties, which is imagination, will, intuition, reasoning. Go ahead, Tanya.
So, yesterday, it's so funny. Yesterday, one of the coaches dropped in a chat an acronym for it, because we always forget one, right? The intuition, memory, imagination, memory, intuition, perception, the will, reason.
Reason.
Yes. And so for me, I love what Terry said. I love that. And for me, it was more along the lines of what you're saying, Giovanna. When I found myself in that space, I would say someone had sent me this video with this guy, Bob Newhart, I think it was, stop it. And so I would just stop it. And then just get into imagination. I found I used imagination and perception. Well, let's switch this a little bit. What else could this mean? And so even the questions I started asking myself, how can I grow through this instead of simply go through it? What's in this for me? Not why is it happening to me? So that was using perception to just change it. But when I really felt like I was going down that rabbit hole and losing control, it became, but hold on a minute. If you say that you're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of a creative God and all of that, what are you creating? What are you, as Terry said, in the now, in the space now to create? And I would sit and I would imagine. So let me just say this quickly, Giovanna. I was in corporate, and now, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker. And it was in that moment, create, imagine, what have you always desired? And I remember the first time I saw Les Brown live in Jamaica, and I knew that was it.
Yeah.
So it was in that moment, and I started imagining. I'm in the hospital bed, imagining myself on stage, speaking, traveling the world, writing, coaching. And that was and my gratitude journal. So you see my journals with the band, those are my filled up gratitude journals. So those were the things for me that would just snap me back, keep going, get out of that space.
Absolutely. We think we can't do it because all we're seeing is what's happening in front of us. But the key is really to step inside of us, in our mind, to say, why can't I do it? The dialogue that we have within ourselves is really like sometimes just stops the boat, like stops everything, because it's not a good dialogue. And changing what we say to ourselves is a big part of surviving. That's how I feel, because guess who's in charge of us? We are in charge of us. And I do feel that I'm so grateful for the doctors who did what they did, but that's just half of the equation. The other half is up to us. It's what do we want? And why can we not get what we want? Who said that? Who said that? So, Terry, I'm sure you can, relate to what I'm saying in regards
Absolutely.
to, what we feel about ourselves. The self-love. I mean, let's face it, self-love goes down the toilet, really. When when we get hit with this, it's like, who cares about self-love? But truly, that is the key. That is the key to really helping us lift us up, because we are important. We are
Right.
important no matter what happens to us. So go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was going to mention self-care and self-compassion, and when you're in the heat of the battle, that saved me. I mean, if I felt like I couldn't even get off the couch, I would push myself to stand up and walk to the bathroom and draw a warm bath with bubbles and light a candle, all the things that I knew I loved when I'm healthy. Well, I'm going to love it now too. And so I joked that I spent most of my post chemo days in the bathtub, which is probably true. But what is it? I always like to ask, what is it that makes you feel good? What did you like when you were healthy? Just because you're sick doesn't mean you won't still like it. So what can you do for yourself? Yoga is another thing. I loved yoga, and I was an active yogi. As soon as I could, I would start getting down on the floor and stretching. And even when I didn't feel up to it, I would try anyway. And just that effort to try made me feel better.
Of course.
Made me see that I'm stronger than I thought. Things like that. Those are a couple of examples of self-care that really, really helped.
And Tanya, did you do any strategies to help yourself?
I'm listening to Terry, and I'm like, you go, girl. Because that was not me in terms of pushing myself and doing my yoga and whatnot. Oh my gosh. You know what? For me, I have to dial it back a little bit, because, as I said, just dialing into more from a mindset perspective. So I remember one day I said to I don't remember if it was my surgeon or my oncologist, and he said something to me, and I said, no, I'm healthy. I'm just waiting on this old body to catch up. I'm just waiting on you guys to catch up on me. But in my mind, in my head, that's what I was seeing. I was seeing myself running and all of that again. And so I found that even just doing those things, the biggest shift for me also happened in just being able to navigate, especially the early days, the chemotherapy days, and it was my mom who did this, and we reframed those, and we said, you know what? There's something in our body that's not good for us. And so chemotherapy days, so, intellectually, we know that chemotherapy is a poison. It can create so much, harm, even though it's with good intent in the body. And so my mom, we would say, oh, chemotherapy days are just body cleanse days. And so we'd walk in and we're doing our body cleanse and walk back out. And so just every day, it was just keeping that sort of mindset. We'd put our pictures up of one of our favorite pictures from before, and we'd put them on a mirror and said, in our heads, that's how we still look. And, little walks in nature and that sort of a thing, but nothing as dramatic like Terry at all. But, we took our time to ease into that. But a lot of it was our journaling. We journaled a lot, little walks in nature, as I said, and music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, I talk about music. Being around family, my kids, my daughter was young, my son was young, And I remember after the surgery, I had 2 weeks to go before my nephew's wedding. So I was like, I'm going to this wedding. And the doctor goes, I truly don't recommend you going to the wedding. I'm like, that is my medicine. I need to be with my family. That will make me better. I promise you. So she goes, I really don't recommend it. You could get an infection. Well, Monday morning, so I did go. In fact, I went, and I'll never forget. I have a Facebook group called Bounce Back for Life and Rise, which I started doing it to bring out inspirational stories like this. And then that grew into this, but and I left that alone. But in there is a video of me going to the wedding, right? And I sang the song. This is my fight song. You know the fight song?
Yeah.
Okay. If you watch that video, it was like I became a magnet because I attracted my whole family towards me. And that to me was so powerful to help me know that I'm going to make it through, right? So we all have something that we can hold on to say, I'm going to make it through. We're going to take another short commercial break, and we're going to come back and give some more tips. That was a quick one. So I like to talk about vision, having a vision. I know this is something that, doesn't even enter into the thoughts in the mind when we're going through this. But having a vision, Tanya and I, and I'm sure Terry, you heard of vision boards. People make vision boards of, when they want to go on vacation, that they cut out the picture, what they want. One of the things that I know in my heart, having a vision and making a vision board in your mind of where you want to be. Because we know that there's a bigger purpose. We're not here to suffer. We weren't created to come on this planet to suffer and to go through this pain and to go through this experience. This experience has, changed who we are. To really understand who we are. That's what this experience did for me. Tanya, I'm sure it did for you. Terry, I'm sure it did for you. Because when we're living in a world where there's so much demand on how many things we need to do, how many people we need to please, how many things we need to accomplish to be successful, we truly forget how we can treat ourselves. We become the last one. We want to please everybody else, and we become the last one to please until something like this happens. And now it's like, wait a minute, let's put the brakes on. Before I say yes to everything on this list, what do I want to do? Let me pick and choose this time, because life is precious. When you're faced with that it may be taken away and it's over, we have a whole different perception of what life is to us, and a whole different meaning. So Terry, can we talk about a little bit what's your take on, creating that vision, that new you from this experience?
Yeah, I often hear women who are going through cancer saying, I just can't wait to be normal again. And my question for them is, why is normal good enough? Let's be better than normal. And we can. That's what cancer taught me, is that I I can be a better person than I was before cancer, coming out of it healthier and stronger and just better. And so what I teach, or what I try to help other women understand, is what is their better normal? What is it do they want? What is that vision they have for their future? And sometimes they don't know, but they don't know how to answer the question because their focus is just surviving, because they're in the heat of the battle. But finding their better normal, I think it has to be very intentional, meaning it doesn't just happen organically. You really understand where do I want to go from here? Is my job, do I go back to my old job? Do I find a new job? Do I have a different passion? All of us are different and unique, but that's part of my book, is helping them identify what it is they want to renew. I teach them to go backwards, to go forward, which I hate to, I know I don't like to use the word hate, but I avoid as much as I can encouraging people to think about the past. But in one respect, I want them to think about how things were before cancer and what will they change now that they have a choice.
Yeah.
Now it's time to reclaim your life, and it's your choice.
What's the name of your book, Terry?
The name of my book is Thrive After Breast Cancer. So it's what all of us have done. Yeah. But I just try to give strategies to do that. So there's a lot of mindset. There's a lot of physical strength, that you have to regain. But our mind is the strongest muscle we have.
Absolutely. And you're not alone, right? We're here to, support everyone that is going through it, because that's truly, this is something that you need to borrow strength at this time.
Yeah.
Right? So you can make it through. And Tanya, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I love what Terry said, because it also took me a while to recognize that, we shift just as through, as how we're shifting through the phases, our mindset has to shift to match. And so in the middle of it, in the heat of the battle, when you're just diagnosed, when you're going through treatment, as we're saying, it's more of a surviving, let me deal with this. And then as we're shifting out, it's not about, and it took me such a long while to realize this, it's not about going back to what was normal, but being able to look forward to what I can create and who I want to be and how I want to show up. And so what were the lessons I was taking away from this experience? That's when I really learned about the law of rhythm. As sure as the sun will rise, it will set. As sure as the tide will go out, it will come back in. As sure as we'll have days of pain, we'll have days of celebration. But it's what we do when we're in those down times, when we take those lessons, because the lessons will keep coming until the lessons are learned.
Yes.
And so who do I want to become? What do I want to be doing? Where do I want to go? Because we are emerging wiser, stronger, more purposeful. And so for me, it really became, it's about my purpose now. Napoleon Hill says it's about that definiteness of purpose. Why are you here? What contribution do you want to make? What impact do you want to make? And believe that this is why you are here, and go for it and become that person. Not about going back to normal. Normal got you in the trouble that you got in the first place.
That's true. I know for me, I went from being a special education teacher, which I love to work with, kids who didn't have a chance, right? And now after the this experience, it's like here I am now taking care of their moms. Like that was my purpose, because now the moms can take care of the kids, right? I mean, we all come here with gifts. We all have our own unique gifts. I truly believe in that. And now our job here on this earth is to find out what those gifts are so we can share them with each other. That to me was another wake up call, because I truly, before the cancer, it was all about what can I get, get that degree, get that bigger house, get that, wonderful job, climb up the ladder. Now it's like, what can I give? Because that is really how the world works. The more you give, the more you will receive. Right? And and again, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing here, is because I want to give back the opportunity that I received. And this is my way of doing it, by sharing with the world how they can find resilience in their adversity, whatever it may be. So we'll just go around one more time and just your final thoughts really on how they can really break through this adversity and come out winning, because they can. They can.
Right.
And even if they have to say it to themselves every day, I'm going to win this battle, because the war is not over until
No.
Terry,
Well,
yeah.
I would say, I said it a little bit ago, but you have a choice. I have a choice. I had a choice to be better. Better in what ways? Well, I had to figure that out, just as you two had to figure it out. We all have to understand where we were and where we want to go. And that's why I say you have to be intentional about it and plan it. You have a dream, it turns into a goal, then it turns into, a plan, and then it turns into an action. You don't just jump from I have a dream and then do it. You got to really plan what you want. And it's not difficult, but thinking through it that way will get you there faster than just jumping in. So healing takes time, but we have to be patient and work through each stage of it. And then you're amazed when you come out on the other side. What a beautiful world it is.
Absolutely. And Tanya?
I love that. First of all, it's about giving yourself, just grace, just grace. One of the things that I know that happens is a lot of blame and shame, and it's about giving grace, and just that recipe that I shared, your prayer, your meditation, just getting connected with you, your gratitude every single day, creating affirmations to help you through every day in every way. I'm getting healthier and healthier, better and better, It's about always studying and listening to something positive, because you're generating that kind of energy in your body. Your environment, listen, we have some people around us who we know they love us, but they're a little negative. Love them, bless them, and send them on their way. And create that positive environment with family and friends. Exercise, whether it's a walk like me, or you have a bigger heart and strength like Terry. But it's always about that mindset, focusing on the breakthrough, focusing on who you want to become, on the next side of it. What's your purpose and how you want to show up in this world after? Because after all, you're going to be emerging wiser, stronger, more purposeful, and have so much more to give to the world.
Absolutely. Well, that's also beautiful. Thank you, Tanya. Well, I have to say, both of you have really outdid yourself as far as, really sharing your story and giving the message of hope, giving the message of you can beat this no matter what. And thriving is your birthright. We are supposed to thrive every day, and we're in charge. We are in charge. And when we do take charge of ourselves and our mind and our heart and go within, I truly feel that you can achieve resilience and success. So I want to say thank you both very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you both. And thank you everyone for watching. And until next time, we'll see you on Sparking Change with Gigi. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.